Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be talking about the Zeta deficit many of you are experiencing and kind of breaking down how to filter out which Zetas you should be equipping, which ones shouldn't you be, how to make sure that you're not stagnating your roster during this time, and kind of how to adjust your farming to sync up with your deficit in Zetas. I think a lot of you are making this huge mistake right now of going from GL to GL to GL to GL, because that's what Fat Phil did. That's what a lot of the guides tell you to do, is build GL to GL to GL. But those guides were created at a time where Zetas were not what held you back from gearing up a character. It was signal data. It was, gear. It was everything else. Where that is kind of flipped, where a lot of you have gear, signal data, relic mats, and you don't have the Zetas, and so it keeps you from being able to obtain some of these really important teams. So I want to make sure that I get this out here to people, and it's something that I feel does need addressed pretty often, because the game and the amount of Zetas in it is only getting more and more demanding. So you've got to find those ways to keep your account moving forward, and we're going to talk about that today. So let's give a shout to our channel members for their continued support. If you guys are ever interested, that link is down below, along with a link to our Discord server. Go check that out. I can't thank you guys enough for sticking with me. A lot of you have been here since the start, which is just awesome. I love seeing that. You've got that OG tag in the Discord, which is so cool. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you again for being a part of the Fat family. It means the world to me. So let's get in here. Let's talk about some Zetas. Alright folks, so the first aspect you need to think about is what caused your Zeta deficit. Did the Lightspeed bundles kill you? That you've gotten too much stuff and you're going GL to GL to GL and it was because of Lightspeed bundles? Or is it because you're in this conquest proving ground situation where you're unlocking all of these characters all around the same time, on top of some of the other things that maybe you've built Galactic Legend wise or Journey Guide, and you don't have enough Zetas to go around, right? It can come from it comes from a whole bunch of things, and it's one of those areas where there's some major Zeta needs that oftentimes all come together. Like if you're doing Proving Grounds and you've been, you're going to get Commander Tano and Malicos and Maul and Bane and Malgus and, whoever else all at the same time, it can be brutal on you trying to figure out which ones to equip and which ones not to equip. And a lot of what you have to do first is filter out the trash. Now, I've got a trash faction here. Obviously, Gungans are just terrible. If Gungans are your favorite faction, you're probably a weird person that deserves to be on some sort of watch list. And you are probably ass at territory battles. Obviously, we're not calling out anybody in particular with that. Egnards. Excuse me, sorry. Sounded like somebody said Egnards. I never would have been me. But no, you do need to filter out the trash. You have to filter out those, and when we say trash, I'm not talking that the characters, even Gungans, they're good. They're not great, but they're good. Or they're necessarily trash Zetas. There's up in this list, there's not a single trash Zeta. But they would be, I'll say, trash to you because you don't have the means to take advantage of that character. You've got to look beyond just, yes, Malicos is a good character. Can you use Malicos? Can you use General Skywalker? Do you have the teams built that those are meaningful Zetas, or are they just something that you're slapping on and you've got to go work on other things? So I'm going to show you a couple of examples from various channel members' accounts. So I want to start first with Exonix here. So we're going to use Exonix account to kind of portray this. And they've, again, a lot of them have listened to me on this subject, so I know why certain things look that way. So I'm going to skip right to unaligned force users. So when you look at Exonix account here, you'll see that he's got GL Ray, he's got Ben Solo, and he even has Commander Tano with the unique Zeta equipped. None of the other ones, which is fine. And then you look, he's got Seer, Cal, Maul, Malicos, but no Zetas equipped on them. This, in my opinion, is exactly, spending Zetas properly. He's got Grand Inquisitor, he's got Riva, he's got him on Starkiller, and the one on Mara Jade that you need. This is a great allocation of resources. He's recognized, hey, I really can't build Malicos. I shouldn't build Malicos yet because I don't have the Zetas I need on Seer Junda. And the ones on Seer Junda you kind of need to be able to do the Jedi Knight Cal Kestis mission properly. I'm not going to say you can't do it without, but it's much easier if you have the Zetas on Seer. Thinking about, look, he's even got the Zetas on Ezra Bridger. He doesn't have Ahsoka yet, but he's got Rey to take advantage. That, in my opinion, is exactly what he should be doing, how he should be allocating his Zetas. He's looked at which ones actually are benefiting his account and which ones are just kind of not there. Look, Darkside Rey, right? He's got Kylo. It makes a ton of sense. And this goes even double for the fact that he doesn't have Sheen or Force Leap on Commander Tano. The Force Leap Zeta is the instant defeat. But think, outside of a Jedi Master Kenobi team, that is 8 turns for her. It's very challenging for her to get to that Force Leap. So that's a smart way to spend that Zeta. Hey, I'm going to save that because realistically, I'm not using her in that Rey team for the Force Leap. I'm using her because she's a power plant for stats. So that's a great example. Another one I want to use with a very similar situation going on is Tesseract here. So we're going to go to Tesseract. And we're going to take a look at his unaligned Force users. Because again, this is where a lot of them are. Look, Maul, Malicos, no Zetas. But even look at Riva. No Zetas on Riva. He does not have Grand Inquisitor yet. I do believe this account is in a guild that gets Riva shards. And I believe he bought the Inquisitor Lightspeed bundle. But again, another great example of understanding where those Zetas need to go. That trying to build up Malicos while he doesn't have a good Seer team doesn't make sense. Even Riva. You don't really have Grand Inquisitor. Now, Riva could be more beneficial, but I know they are short on Zetas, and so they made the decision that, hey, I probably shouldn't invest in Riva until I can at least get Grand Inquisitor, and then we've got to kind of build those characters up and figure out which Zetas are the most impactful there. But this is another very good example of a wise allocation of Zetas. And then the last one I'll use here is we're going to go to Teacher Man. And Teacher Man here, I was asking this question because he was trying to build some teams. And so what I'm going to show is kind of maybe getting him to think a little bit more about where he wants to spend these Zetas. So again, going to the UFUs, because again, there's a lot of characters here. Notice the same thing. 0 Zetas on Seer, none on Cal, fine. He does have Riva, or he does have Grand Inquisitor. He does not have Riva yet, but he at least has Grand Inquisitor. And then look, Maul, Malicos, no Zetas. Because he was asking me about building Maul, building Malicos, and I kind of was like, I would not do that yet if you're short on Zetas, and especially because he does not have Zeta on Mara Jade or on Starkiller here. There are no Zetas. If I am him, I am putting both of these Zetas on before I worry about Maul or Malicos because I've invested relics into Starkiller and Mara Jade. That's how I think through that. I'd rather put my gear or my Zetas on characters that I have geared up that I can use today. And even, getting a little bit brutal on him here, I would still even think about throwing on the unique for Palpatine just because that does really help the Starkiller team. But again, that's more of a luxury. I'd definitely get Starkiller and Mara Jade's Omicrons to get the most out of that team. Or the Zetas there, sorry. Not Omicrons. Zetas. But that's just, again, the way my mind works. That Malicos' Zetas don't really help him when you think about it in the context that you're going to need Seer. You're going to need even Fulcrum, right? Like, to make that team do what it does, you need a lot of extra Zetas. So that's filtering out the trash, right? You're trying to figure out which Zetas help you and which ones at the current time are trash in the sense that they're not going to help you or that they require so much extra additional investment that it's not worth it. The other aspect that I think a lot of you maybe should be thinking of is sometimes it's not about not spending Zetas, but about spending the right ones. And again, that was kind of what we were talking about with filtering trash out, but also think about that by spending 3 Zetas on 2 on Great Mothers, 1 on Morgan, you can take this ragtag group of Night Sisters and make a team that stops a lot of stuff, that will force you to use some high-level counters. That is a very, very good use of Zetas. It's two characters who, again, you're going to need eventually if you want to go for Balin, that take characters who many of you got from a Lightspeed bundle and turn them into a fantastically solid team. That's a good example. Also think about your Padawan Obi-Wan, Master Qui-Gon. Those are two characters. Hey, a Zeta each at Relic 7, get you to the Assault Battle, start earning some extra resources. That's another example where, yes, you're not spending many, you're spending a few Zetas, but the return you're getting out of those characters is massive. So I always mention this when I talk about Zetas. It's not that you don't spend them, just the ones you spend should be a lot of value added and not a little bit of value added, if you follow me there, right? You don't want to go and spend 3 Zetas on Malicos and then still need all the rest of your Ufu stuff. The 3 Zetas going on Morgan and Great Mothers, now you've built a fantastic team and have something that Territory Battles, Territory Wars, Grand Arena, Conquest works wonders. Another aspect that you can think about here is, hey, I'm short on Zetas. I don't want to stall my account out. You don't want to be stagnant, right? Stagnation is the worst thing in the world. What you can do is bump your relics up. A lot of the, I was always against this, tell you don't do it, just go to the next GL. But that was always coming from the place that you had Zetas to spend on those new things. When you don't have the Zetas to spend, you've got to do the opposite. You've got to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start bumping up some relics now. And in some cases, it's the characters like Leia and Chrysanthemum. If we go back to a couple of their accounts here, I'm going to go to Tesseract. Or I'm going to go to Exonix. We'll go to Exonix account. So if I go to Exonix, back to Exonix account here, and we pull up his roster. So if you look at, say, his Hut Cartel here as an example. Relic 5 on Leia, Relic 5 on Chrysanthemum. If he goes and takes them even just to Relic 7, spend some time, hey, I'm going to bring them up to Relic 7. Now he's got a better Hut Cartel team. Now that's better for 3v3. That's something Fat Phil did much higher than 10.5 million, but I wasn't in a Zeta crisis at that point, so I could go build GL to GL to GL to Journey Guide to Journey Guide to Journey Guide, and I wasn't having to flip a coin over what Zeta to equip. So bumping up some relics there. Or even thinking about some of these characters like Beskar Armor Mando, where I'm eventually going to need him for Bo-Katan Mandalore. I may as well bump him up to Relic 7 because I know I'm going to need it. And it looks like he's already working on the Bo characters, so that should go double. But that's something for many of you that even if you're not close to getting Bo-Katan Mandalore, still going in and bumping up relics on someone like Beskar Armor Mando, he's an important pilot in the Razor Crest. That makes that Executor fleet a lot better, and you're going to need him later. Think about Captain Rex. If you have him with the Phoenix bundle, he's lower relics, go build him to, bring him up to Relic 5, Relic 7. You need him for Leia at that point. You might not be ready to start Leia, but you're ready to be using him, so investing those relics doesn't hurt you. Similar situation with Sith Trooper. If you use Sith Trooper a lot, you've got him at Relic 5, don't hesitate to bring him to Relic 7 if you're at the Zeta deficit, because you need him at Relic 7 anyway for Leviathan, and he's a fantastic character to go in your Supreme Leader Kylo Ren team. So that's just, again, a few characters that you're going to use a lot, whether it's the Hut Cartel where they're not needed. You don't need to increase their relic levels for anything other than performance, where some of these other ones, we can increase their performance and they're eventually needed for something else. And there's plenty of other characters I could put on that list. One of my all-time favorite teams, the Commander Luke Skywalker team. If you don't have them all at like Relic 7, that could be a really good investment. You eventually need Commander Luke and 3PO and Chewie at Relic 7 for Leia. Chewbacca doesn't need to go above Relic 6, but hey, for the hell of it, bring him to Relic 7. It's a good team. That's a few areas where you can kind of bump up relics to kind of get ahead on some of those other GL farms without fully committing to it. You're just bumping up the characters that are good that you would be investing in anyway if they weren't needed for something. The last thing you can do, again, is look at characters who don't have Zetas. And the first 3 here are needed in some way, shape, or form for Leviathan, and Sith Marauder is actually a Galactic Legend requirement for Sith Eternal. But if you don't have these characters at relics, invest in them. You don't need to go to Relic 7 right away, but build them up a little bit. Spend some time. Build them. You don't need the Zetas here. And then even looking at Gar Saxon and Imperial Super Commando, and I would implore a lot of you, if you're down on your luck on Zetas, build these two guys. They are brilliant without their Zetas. They will beat a lot of, I don't want to say mediocre teams, but they will beat a good fair bit of teams, just the two of them, especially for where some of you sit in Grand Arena, where there's still kind of some of those random back wall teams that aren't that good. These two will clear that out. Their synergy is fantastic. I really like these two characters. Obviously, with the Zeta, Gar Saxon is better, but they're also pilots in the Gauntlet Starfighter, which, again, boosts your GP. So, you could even spend some time still progressing your account forward just on characters who you don't need those Zetas equipped on. And this way, you're getting ahead on some of those later farms while also building quality. Again, you're trying to avoid that stagnation. You're trying to avoid those instances where your account just isn't making any kind of substantial progress. You want to avoid that at all costs. And so sometimes it's maybe going through things backwards to what Fat Phil did, because, again, when I was coming up through the game back in my day, I had more Zetas than I knew what to do with. I didn't have any gear. So you might need to flip your logic a little bit, but that's what the purpose of this video is for. So let me know what your thoughts are down below. Like, subscribe, comment. If you enjoy this video and want to see others like it, go on my channel, search for stuff. I appreciate you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.